Hey guys, so we're continuing with vertex form. Okay, today we're going to be talking about how we can go from standard form into vertex form, right? So the vertex of a parabola and its general shape is easy to find once it's in vertex form, right? In this lesson, we're going to discover how to convert from standard form to vertex form through a technique called completing the square. We'll see completing the square again later when we learn how to solve quadratics, but this time we're going to use how to complete the square in order to go from one form to the other. Okay, so my first question is, why is 4 a perfect square number? Okay, and the reason why 4 is a perfect square number is because 4 is formed by taking an integer like 2 and squaring it, right? And so 4 is formed by 2 squared. Okay. What it means is that if I had 4 boxes, it can create a square because then I have 2 boxes, versus 5 is not a perfect square number because 5 cannot be formed by squaring an integer. And if you had 5 boxes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no way to arrange it into a perfect square, right? So here we're going to practice. You're going to use the box method to multiply the following, right? So here we have x plus 5 squared. Remember, that means x plus 5 times x plus 5. And so if we use the box method to help us multiply, right? We have x plus 5 here, x plus 5. X times x is x squared. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times x is 5x. And 5 times 5 is 25. This is x squared plus 5x plus 5x plus 25, which becomes x squared plus 10x plus 25. Okay, note that this is double this number. Oops, sorry. Let me scroll down. Note that this 10x here is double this number, and this 25 is 5 squared. Okay, so let's do the same here with x minus 6 squared. Okay, so x minus 6 times x minus 6. That's what x minus 6 squared means. Okay, so let's multiply using the box method. X negative 6, x negative 6. Okay, so x times x is x squared. X times negative 6 is negative 6x. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. And negative 6 times negative 6 is a positive 36. This gives me x squared minus 6x minus 6x plus 36, which becomes, when I combine these two like terms, x squared minus 12x plus 36. Okay. Note that this middle term is doubled this second term, and then this last term is this second term squared. Okay, and so we're going to take that idea that this is double this and this is squared this in order to complete the square. Okay, so let's flip it over. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this quadratic function into vertex form. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite the original. So f of x equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. Okay, so the first thing I want is to get the x terms by itself. Okay, so as a result, this is not an x term, so I'm going to move it over. Okay, so how am I going to move it over? I'm going to take it, I'm going to move it to the other side. So since this is a minus 8, to move it to the other side, I'm going to add 8. Okay, and this gives me f of x f of x plus 8 equals x squared minus 2x. Okay, so then I'm going to rewrite it here in my next step here. So f of x plus 8 equals x squared minus 2x. Okay, so this is getting the x terms by themselves. So the negative 8 isn't the x term, so I'm going to move it to the other side. Okay, the second step is to identify b. Okay, so b here is negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to take negative 2. I'm going to divide it by 2. and then I'm going to square that number. Okay? So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. Okay? And so it tells me to add that number to both sides. So this number that I have now, I'm going to add it to both sides. Okay, so let me rewrite what I have here. So f of x plus 8 equals x squared minus 2x. I'm going to take that number and add it on both sides. So plus 1. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So plus 1. Then combine it. So f of x here, 8 plus 1 is 9. So plus 9 equals x squared minus 2x plus 1. Okay. And then, next step here, I'm just going to rewrite it. Okay. Then, the next step tells me to turn the perfect squared side into its factors. Okay, so here, I'm going to factor this side. Okay, and when you factor this is a perfect square. What ends up happening is this becomes x minus 1 squared. Okay. Easy trick to not do the diamond is that this is going to be x. This number here is going to be this once you divide it by 2. It's going to be b divided by 2. Okay. So here, that's how I get this. You could have also done the diamond method with it, and you would have realized that when you factored it, it was x minus 1 times x minus 1, which is x minus 1 squared. Okay. Then the last step, let me copy back what I had before. Okay. Then the last step is to return that number value back to the factored side. So I'm going to take this plus 9 here, and I'm going to move it over by subtracting 9. There you go. F of x equals x minus 1 squared minus 9. And now we went from standard form ax squared plus bx plus c all the way into vertex form, where we have f of x equals a, x minus h squared plus k. Okay. So let's try a couple more. Okay, it's going to be less choppy this time. Okay, but we're going to follow the same steps that we had previously. Okay. So my first step, okay, so this is in standard form, f of x equals x squared plus 12x plus 20. Okay, the first step is to get x terms by itself. So here, this plus 20 isn't an x term. So I'm going to move it to the other side by subtracting 20. Okay, what you do to one side, you need to do to the other. Okay. So this gives me f of x minus 20 equals x squared plus 12x. Okay. The second step tells me to identify what b is. So b goes with x to the power of 1. Okay, so this is b. Okay, so on the side here, I'm going to put b, which is 12. Okay, we're going to divide it by 2 and square it. Okay, so 12 divided by 2 is 6. Okay. 6 squared is 36. Okay, and then, so this was step 2, 3, and 4, right? So I identified b, which was 12, divided it by 2, and then squared it. Okay, that gave me 36. Then I'm going to add that number to both sides. Okay, so I'm going to take that 36, I'm going to plus 36 here. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. This gives me f of x plus 16 equals x squared plus 12x plus 36. Okay, then step 6 tells me to turn the perfect squared side into its factor. So here I'm going to factor this. You can factor it using the x method, or when you're completing the square, nice and easy. This becomes x. Whatever you had after you divided by 2, it's going to be here. So after I divided b by 2, it was 6, so it's going to be x plus 6 squared. Remember when we were multiplying that I told you that this was double this, all right, when we did it. Okay, so x plus 6 squared. Okay, and then the last step, what we're going to do is we're going to return this number value back to the other side. So I'm going to take this, it's plus 16, so I'm going to subtract 16 on both sides. Okay, and then I have f of x equals x plus 6 squared minus 16. And there you go. That's my answer. If I were to identify the vertex, which the directions tell me to identify the vertex here, okay, again, h is opposite sign of what we see since it's x minus h. So here it's technically x minus negative 6. So vertex negative 6, negative 16. Okay, and there you go. Okay. Let's do one more. And so we're going to follow the exact same steps. Okay. Changing things into certain forms with completing the square is quite common. We do it in geometry to write our equations of circles. You do it in Algebra 2, and you do it in pre-calc as well. Okay. So here I have a quadratic. F of x equals x squared minus 8x minus 48. Okay. So looking at my steps, the first step is to get x terms by itself. So this is not an x term, so I'm going to move it over. Okay. So since this is a minus 48, I'm going to move it to the other side by adding 48. Okay. So this is f of x plus 48 equals x squared minus 8x. Right? Step 2, 3, and 4. Step 2 tells me to identify b. So b here is negative 8. Okay, so here on the side I'm going to do it. So identify b, which is negative 8. Divide it by 2 and square it. Okay, so here's b. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. Then, okay, so this was step 2, 3, and 4. Okay, step 5 tells me to add that number to both sides. So I'm going to take that 16. I'm going to add it to both sides. So plus 16, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Okay. And then simplify. F of x equals 64. Oh, sorry, f of x plus, that should be a plus. 64 here equals x squared minus 8x plus 16. Okay, the next step tells me to factor the perfect squared side. So this is the perfect square side. Okay, you can do the diamonds like we did before, or as I told you, when we're completing the square, it's going to be this number after we divide by 2, right? B when we divide by 2. So it should be minus 4 right, squared. Okay, we saw that earlier when we were practicing multiplying, that it was double this, and then when we squared it, it gave us this third term here. Okay. And then the last step tells me to move the number back to the other side. So I'm going to take this plus 64, I'm going to subtract 64 on both sides. Okay. And then here we have f of x equals x minus 4 squared minus 64. Okay, and there it is in vertex form. So now I can easily find the vertex, h comma k. H is opposite sign from what we see. So if it's x minus 4, h is going to be 4. And then k is same sign, so k here is negative 64. And that's where my vertex is. Okay. That's it for today. Have a great rest of the day. Bye, guys.